It happened in front of 200 shareholders. My own daughter, Ava, standing beside our family's rival, announcing the merger that would destroy everything I'd built. Her voice was calm, rehearsed, merciless. Effective immediately, Sterling Global Holdings will be under new management. My name wasn't mentioned once. I felt the room tilt. Decades of empire building turned to ash in a single presentation. Before we dive fully into this story to uncover the deepest secrets, real family betrayal and satisfying revenge, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. She smiled, called me Dad in the past tense, and signed away $4 billion worth of assets. Everyone clapped. Everyone but me. That's when I realized this wasn't her first betrayal. It was her seventh. And this time, she'd gone too far. Ava walked out with her husband, my former protege, Liam Carter. As she passed my seat, she whispered just loud enough for me to hear, "Now he's nothing." I couldn't sleep that night. Every betrayal flashed before my eyes like old film reels. The first was small, or so I thought. She leaked a confidential proposal to a competitor when she was just 22, costing us a $200 million contract. When I confronted her, she cried. Said it was an accident. I forgave her. A mistake, I told myself. But later, I saw the payment in her offshore account. $50,000 from an unknown source. That was the first time my daughter chose money over blood. I remember sitting in my office, staring at the bank statement David Benton had secretly shown me. My CFO had been worried. I told him to bury it. Family comes first, I said. What a fool I was. I should have walked out that day. At her wedding, the same man who paid her that first time stood beside her as the groom. Liam Carter. My right-hand executive. The man I'd mentored for 5 years. He looked me dead in the eye while giving his toast. To new beginnings, and to learning from those who came before us. The room laughed. Everyone thought it was sweet. I knew it was venom. That night, I signed over 10% of my company as a wedding gift. A month later, that stock was used to vote me out of my own board. I discovered it in a legal filing. My own shares, gifted in love, weaponized against me. But I stayed quiet. I was still her father. After the humiliation, I started digging. In my private office, the one she'd once played in as a child, I found a hidden drive labeled Legacy Files. Inside were emails between Ava, Liam, and 3 board members. They planned every betrayal down to the minute. Each one had a price tag. Each betrayal bought them a piece of my empire. But what froze me was an unsigned email draft from Ava's account. It read, "Once he's gone, I'll finally be free." I printed it. Stared at those words until they blurred. My daughter didn't just want my company. She wanted me erased. As I sat there in the dark, a new message appeared on screen. From her. Dad, we need to talk. She chose the same restaurant I used to take her to on her birthdays. Now she sat across from me in a power suit, smiling like she didn't burn my life to the ground. Dad, it wasn't personal. It was business. She said it so casually, sipping wine, like she was talking about the weather. When I asked why, she leaned forward. Because you always told me to be stronger than you. The words cut deeper than any lawsuit. That's when I realized her goal wasn't just control. It was erasure. She wanted to replace me entirely. To become Walter Sterling without the man attached. I left that dinner knowing I would destroy her career and her marriage without ever raising my voice. For weeks, I played the fool. I let Ava believe she had buried me. That her new empire with Liam was thriving. But while she was on magazine covers, I was meeting in shadows. I reached out to David Benton, my former CFO. He'd resigned when Ava took over, disgusted by their games. Walter, he said over coffee in a quiet diner, I kept every file they erased. Every account they hid. That night, he handed me a drive. It didn't just have proof of her corruption. It had a seed. A weapon that could turn her world against her. Inside the files was something Ava didn't know existed. Liam's secret bank account. Under her name. With transfers she never authorized. I didn't confront her. I let time do it. A month later, a tax inquiry arrived at her office. Anonymous tip. The account in question carried her name. Ava Sterling. Liam panicked. He'd used her identity for his own bribes, never expecting it to surface. Their perfect marriage began to rot from the inside. I watched it happen through silent channels, hearing fragments from people still loyal to me. You said you cleared those funds, Liam. I thought you handled it. Their empire started trembling. The media began asking questions. Investors grew nervous. And I stayed invisible, watching the foundation crack. Then Ava's lawyer called me. She was under investigation for money laundering she never committed. The irony was perfect. When she called, her voice was smaller. Dad, can we talk? I agreed. This time, I chose the place. The same restaurant where she humiliated me 6 months earlier. She arrived alone. No makeup. No ring. They froze my accounts. I might go to prison. I listened, calm. She asked if I could pull strings. Said I still had connections in Washington. I did. But I don't move for strangers. Her eyes filled. Not from guilt, but desperation. She didn't apologize. She just wanted rescue. I stood to leave. As I passed her table, I slid a small envelope across the wood. Inside was a single photo. Liam with another woman. Beverly Quinn, his executive assistant. The caption read, "Meet your replacement." By morning, the media had it. Liam Carter, CEO of Sterling Global, caught in a scandal involving corporate fraud and an affair with Beverly Quinn. Ava went silent. Her lawyers withdrew. Investors panicked. The stock plummeted 40% in 2 days. And for the first time, I didn't feel revenge. I felt pity. She was losing everything she stole, not by my hand directly, but by her own choices. Still, I knew she'd try to survive. Ava always does. She's my daughter, after all. Stubborn. Relentless. Dangerous when cornered. That's when she showed up at my doorstep at midnight, drenched in rain, mascara streaking down her face. "Dad," she whispered, "I have no one else." I let her in. For the first time in years, she called me Dad without venom. She said Liam drained her accounts and fled the country. She was under federal scrutiny. Her name blacklisted. "I'll fix this," she whispered. "I'll rebuild." I told her quietly, "You can't rebuild something you never understood." Then I handed her a folder. Documents reinstating her shares to my name, legally signed by Liam before he disappeared. She looked at me in disbelief. "You planned this?" "No," I said. "You did. I just didn't stop you." As she broke down, I revealed the final truth. I knew about her 7th betrayal long before the boardroom day. And I let it happen. Because some lessons can only be learned in fire. I found Mira the way predators find prey. By following the quiet footprints she thought she'd hidden. She'd been Ava's closest advisor for 5 years. A private equity consultant who smelled of jasmine and ambition. Everyone assumed she was an outside investor. I learned she was an architect. In David's locked folder was a chain of messages Mira thought were deleted. Strategy memos. Payment receipts. Timelines. She had peddled suggestions in syrup tones. Ava should be more visible. Move Dad aside. Use Liam to consolidate loyalties. And Ava had listened. I read one line twice until it burned my eyes, make him feel irrelevant. Then the takeover will be effortless. Mira had been planting ideas in Ava since college. As I closed the file, a new email popped up. You were always too sentimental, Walter. Signed, Mira. I called Mira and asked her to dinner. Under the pretense of truce. She arrived wearing cold confidence and a necklace that caught the light. She didn't deny the messages. Instead, she tilted her head and told me a story about a girl she once coached through heartbreak. A girl who needed to learn how to survive in a ruthless room. You taught her to be soft, Walter. I taught her to be effective. Then she dropped the real bomb. Liam had been her recruit. Her Trojan horse inside my company. She'd paid him through a shadow fund. Ava hadn't been the originator. She was the perfect instrument. But the twist came when Nira laughed and slipped. He signed the wire transfers using your old private code. My heart stalled. Panic was a poor strategist. I called David at dawn. His voice was gravel and apology. He admitted Nira had blackmailed 2 board members with personal scandals. She'd convinced them voting my shares away was the only solution. He swore he never wanted this. That he'd only kept files to use as insurance for me. The twist came next. David hadn't been coerced entirely. He'd staged a public resignation years ago as cover to continue collecting proof on corrupt partners. He'd waited for me to be ready to act. He had been my shadow advisor all along. Emotion hit then. David had risked everything to protect me and set the trap. While we spoke, my phone buzzed. An anonymous courier at my building. Inside the box was a photo of Ava smiling with Liam and Beverly at a private jet. On the back, one word, choice. Ava called, voice brittle. They sent me something, Dad. She was at some shelter of a hotel. Fragile as an empty glass. I told her to wait. I told David to trace the courier. The manifest traced back to a shell company Nira used for PR. But the package's contents were cleverer than blackmail. It contained falsified documents. Forged emails. Fake wire authorizations. Even a doctored video of me supposedly approving a transfer. Nira had set a new trap. This time to place my hands on the wheel. The twist came when I had the forgeries examined. The watermark was an old security imprint we used at Sterling. One I had invented years ago. Someone inside my circle had replicated it. That night, encrypted footage appeared on my personal server. 5 minutes of me hitting send on a wire instruction. I hadn't sent it. I could have answered every attack in anger. Instead, I set a public spectacle that would force Nira into motion. I leaked a controlled rumor. An anonymous investor was offering Ava an exit package for full cooperation. If she exposed Nira, she'd get immunity and $5 million in seed capital to start over. Nira's reaction was surgical. She moved assets in panic. Pulled strings. Contacted Beverly to liquidate an account. Those transactions, once traced, pointed directly to an island trust that could be seized with a court order. But here's the emotional twist I'd kept locked in my chest. I did all this not just to bankrupt her architect, but to give my daughter a real choice. She stood at my kitchen table that night, rain on her coat. Do it, she whispered. Take it all back. She picked up the pen. Her hand shook. I arranged it so the world would see everything at once. We held the press conference in a courthouse atrium. Cameras. Pundits. A folding microphone like a guillotine. Ava read the statement I insisted she write herself. No lawyer's euphemisms. No corporate spin. Just 3 paragraphs. Admission. Apology. Surrender of control. Her voice cracked once, then steadied. The public loved the contrition. The markets hated it. Sterling stock plunged. The twist came when, mid-sentence, someone in the crowd shouted, "Who set you up, Ava? Who is Neera?" Ava stopped. For the first time in weeks she looked truly frightened. Not for herself, but for the person she'd once trusted like a sister. As cameras swarmed, Neera's profile flashed across my phone. A live feed from a private island party. Raising a glass to the chaos she'd orchestrated. The footage was beautiful and dangerous. Neera, Beverly, and two shadowy financiers toasting as yachts bobbed behind them. They were untouchable. Or so they thought. David had already moved. He'd traced the IP. Punched legal holes through shell corporations. Found a dormant compliance clause in an old fund that linked one of Neera's accounts to a US-based trustee. It was tenuous, but enough to freeze assets temporarily. I watched Neera's smile fade when she realized her liquidity might vanish. Her first move was predictable. Threaten exposure of a private file she'd kept on me. A ledger of favors. Meetings. Embarrassing debts. She believed leverage could buy her freedom. That night, a box arrived at my doorstep. Inside was a weathered photograph of me and a man labeled Biden. Not the president, but a codename I'd used years ago. On the back, Neera wrote, "You owe me one last debt." The name on the photograph spat like acid. I'd buried that chapter of my life. Political favors. Risky loans. A careless handshake that had once saved sterling during a liquidity crunch. Neera now held the currency of blackmail. History. But blackmail needs credibility. I called Kim, an old friend in compliance at the bank who still owed me a favor. She ran the photograph through metadata. Found the truth. The image had been manipulated. The man in the photo wasn't my old contact at all. Neera had forged history to manufacture leverage. The twist came next. While investigating the forgery, Kim discovered a second file. A transfer log that did link to the old handshake. But the beneficiary wasn't Neera. It was an untraceable microgrant used to fund community hospitals in West Africa. My phone buzzed with a message, "You never told your daughter why you hid the hospitals." I read that unsent letter at midnight. In it I'd tried to explain to younger Ava why I'd diverted funds. Not to hide corruption, but to protect a whistleblower who'd risked his life exposing graft in a supplier we used. I'd shielded him. And in doing so, created shadows that Neera could now exploit. I realized everything I'd kept secret for noble reasons had become a spiderweb where a clever spider could trap everyone. The moral sting hit me. My silence had given Neera her map. So I changed the weapon. Instead of hiding, I exposed. I released the full audit. The good, the ugly, the charitable transfers. And invited independent investigators and the press to examine the ledger. Redemption had to be transparent, or it would be theater. Ava called in the middle of the night, "Dad, why would you release those files? You'll ruin the hospitals." The audit didn't just rattle Neera. It exposed one of her confidants. Beverly Quinn. Beverly had been Neera's on-the-ground handler. But the audit showed payments from Beverly's account to a shell group that funded propaganda pieces attacking me. And shockingly, secret wire transfers meant to bribe a key witness to lie. I never expected her to be the one to crack. The twist came when confronted. Beverly broke down and confessed she'd been promised a way out by Neera, then double-crossed. She'd been siphoning small sums to a personal account labeled, "For Ava." A guilt fund she intended to use to set things right when the house of cards fell. She'd been playing both sides. Emotional payoff hit me like a physical thing. This wasn't only a chess match. It was a puzzle of damaged people trying to survive. Beverly handed me a USB. "There's one file Neera never wanted anyone to see." I plugged the USB into my laptop, expecting old financials. What appeared instead were recordings of my own voice. Calls I'd never made. Promises I'd never spoken. Someone had stitched my words into new meanings. Then I saw the metadata. Every clip originated from Neera's old company servers. The same ones I once funded. The realization hit. She hadn't just framed my company. She had been recording me for years. Building a synthetic version of me to destroy me when the time came. I felt the walls close in. The war had turned digital. A message popped up on the screen: play the next file if you want to know why your daughter chose me. My hand hovered over the mouse. Then I clicked. The screen filled with Ava's face. Young. Terrified. Beside Liam. Reading from a paper. The video showed Ava, looking terrified, sitting beside Liam, reading from a paper. I signed this willingly. My father's empire is to be transferred. Her voice broke. Behind her, Neera's reflection moved across the window glass. I realized it wasn't coercion. It was belief. Ava truly thought she was saving me by giving away everything. That cut deeper than any betrayal. She wasn't evil. She was convinced. The enemy hadn't stolen my company. They had rewritten my daughter's faith. Made her believe I was corrupt. That signing away Sterling would protect me from prosecution. The video ended with Ava whispering directly to the camera, "Dad, please don't make me choose." I sat there in the dark. For the first time in months, I understood. She hadn't betrayed me out of greed. She'd betrayed me out of love. Twisted, manipulated love. For the first time, I didn't plan revenge. I planned a lesson. I began seeding truth. Quiet leaks. Old memos. Confidential emails. Each one showing how Neera manipulated not just me, but every investor and even Liam's father. I made sure the files reached the wrong people. Journalists. Rival CEOs. Angry partners. Within a week, Neera's empire started to wobble. Investors began asking questions. Auditors circled. But then I learned something horrifying. Neera and Liam had filed a lawsuit using my daughter's name as co-complainant. My blood froze. Ava had become their legal weapon. They were using her signature to claim I'd defrauded the company. That I'd stolen from shareholders. That everything I'd built was a lie. I received a handwritten note slipped under my door at midnight: "She's about to testify against you." No signature. But I knew who sent it. The courtroom lights felt like interrogation lamps. Ava stood across from me, trembling but defiant. Neera sat behind her, calm, almost proud. Ava's words sliced through the silence: "My father used offshore accounts to hide billions from investors." A lie. One Neera had engineered by re-editing my audio files. But I didn't defend myself. Not yet. I waited for Neera to smile. And she did. That smile was all I needed. The cameras caught it. The world saw her gloat before her victory was sealed. Because outside that courtroom, my team was uploading a file she never expected. One showing how she forged the recordings herself. The metadata. The timestamps. The original, unedited clips. As the file hit the news, Neera's lawyer's phone began ringing non-stop. Chaos erupted mid-trial. The judge called for recess. Ava looked at me, confused and terrified. Within hours, the media flipped the story. The betrayed father became the victim of one of the biggest corporate manipulations ever uncovered. Neera's investors fled. Liam's family withdrew their support. Ava, pale and silent, walked out of the courtroom and found me waiting in the hallway. She didn't cry. She simply whispered, "What have I done?" I said nothing. Just handed her a folder. Divorce documents. "Give this to your husband. Tell him it's from me." When Liam opened it later that night, he found a single photo inside. A photo proving that Nira and his own father had been working together all along. That he'd been a pawn too. Used and discarded. That night, his marriage ended exactly as I planned. But as I left the courthouse, my phone buzzed. A final message from Nira: "You think you've won, Walter. Check your offshore account. You'll see who really owns you." I opened the offshore account Nira told me to check. She was right. Every cent was gone. But the transfer trail ended at a foundation in Zurich bearing my own name. She'd stolen from me using a clone of my charity account. And in doing so, she'd unknowingly linked herself to money laundering across 3 continents. I smiled. She'd just placed her neck on the same blade she meant for me. The old man in me whispered, "Don't rush. Let her sign her own confession." I called an emergency meeting of all shareholders and invited Nira as honored guest. She arrived confident, believing she still held cards. She didn't know I'd already shown the prosecutors everything. That her own greed had built the cage. The boardroom filled. Cameras positioned. This would be her funeral. And she'd deliver the eulogy herself. The room was silent except for the echo of projector slides. Each one carried her forged signatures. The offshore transfers. Time-stamped footage from Zurich. Every document ended with the same authorization line: Nira Benton for Walter Holdings. When I paused the screen, she tried to speak, but her voice cracked. I simply said, "You buried me with paper. I'm burying you with ink." Then I handed her a pen and a final document. Her own resignation, dated a month earlier, typed in her handwriting. Proof she'd been planning her exit all along. Security waited by the door. She had 2 choices. Sign and walk out with dignity, or refuse and face federal marshals. She signed. As she was escorted out, she leaned close and whispered, "You think this is over? Ask Ava who funded the Zurich account first." The words followed me home like ghosts. That night I searched Ava's accounts. The money trail curved back, not to greed, but to debt. She'd been blackmailed to transfer funds to protect Liam's failing company. She'd sold me out to save him. For the first time in months, my anger softened. The betrayal wasn't malice. It was desperation wrapped in love. Still, truth demands balance. I decided to save her the only way I knew. By letting everything she valued collapse, so she could see who stood beside her when the dust cleared. I transferred the Zurich funds back into her name. And reported her as the whistleblower. Within 48 hours, headlines erupted: Ava Benton exposes billion-dollar fraud ring. The world hailed her as hero. Liam became a liability overnight. His family cut him off. Nira vanished under investigation. While they scattered, I stayed silent, letting the world paint its stories. In my silence, I found peace. Revenge had become redundant. Justice was simply arithmetic now. Days later, a letter arrived. Unsigned, but in Liam's handwriting: "You didn't destroy me, sir. You freed her." I folded it and placed it beside my late wife's photo. The war had finally taught them what loyalty costs. I thought it was over. Then a call came from an unknown number. Nira's voice, calm and resigned: "You missed one file, Walter. It's about your wife." My blood went cold. I agreed to meet her one last time. On a bench overlooking the bay. The same spot I first met my wife 40 years ago. Nira looked smaller now. Thinner. Like the fight had hollowed her out. She handed me a small envelope. She was the one who found me, years ago. "Your wife. She paid me to keep you humble." Inside was a single faded receipt. My wife's signature beside an old transfer to Nira's startup. I laughed softly. Even from the grave, my wife had been teaching me the same lesson. Power without humility devours its owner. Neera stood. So, what now? I said, now, nothing. You've already served your purpose. As she walked away, I dropped the receipt into the sea. The waves erased it. And with it, the last thread of vengeance. I'd lost billions. Family. Pride. But gained something rarer. The calm of a man no longer at war with anyone, not even himself. Ava called that evening. Her voice was different. Lighter. Dad, can we start over? I looked at the sunset painting the water gold. We already have, I said. In the end, the smartest revenge is peace. It leaves your enemies wondering what you know that they never will. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. Don't forget to turn your notifications on to listen to more stories from this channel. Thank you for watching.